I know what you're thinking. What does a setup like this cost? Ooh, it's quite a bit. But when you buy something like this, you're not just getting a rack, you're getting a home. And you're gonna need it when your wife sees the bill. Mighty, come home. While I think that 3x3 racks are overkill for a home gym, well, here I am with one. And this one is the next tier of over the top. A 3x3 rack with 11 gauge steel and 1-inch holes and hardware. Not only is it unnecessary and too much, it's all mine. Now I'm gonna warn you guys right now, we got 18 inches of snow and we lost power, so my heater hasn't been going all day and it's 39 degrees in here as evidence of the non-melting snow. So please enjoy my suffering. So in this video, we're gonna cover all the details and reasons why I went with this rack versus a lot of other popular options and why I upgraded from my Rogue Infinity 2x3 rack. And I'm gonna say right now, this rack is not for everyone. And I don't mean that in a pompous, I'm better than you sort of way. I mean, it's overbuilt and really just too much for the vast majority of us. But looking at the Rep PR-5000, there's a lot of reasons to want one. Rep seems to consistently find themselves at the sweet spot between price and quality, where you feel like you got a good deal and you didn't sacrifice quality along the way. Now, to be clear, this is not a budget rack. And if you're getting this thing, you're probably pretty serious about blowing money.
Hey, you're supposed to encourage them to use your affiliate links.
Yeah, so this thing's pretty awesome. And if you don't believe me, check out my friend's reaction when we installed his PR-4000.
Easy.
Just watch this video fully first, 3 or 4 times, for the ad revenue to help grow the channel. Now, is it a perfect rack? No, but I didn't have to sell my body to get it. It's just my personality to you guys. And whereas Rep really couldn't keep up with Rogue's attachments in the past, as you'll see later in the video, they're not taking strides there, they're making huge leaps. Let's cover the specs quickly, which will set up my comparisons and better explain why I went Rep over other racks and changed racks at all. It's got 2-inch hole spacing on the front and sides of all uprights and cross members, and while I technically prefer west side hole spacing, which is 1-inch spacing in the bench region and 2 inches elsewhere, and that's because I work out with a few people here of varying heights, but specifically with Winnie, an inch can mean a lot. And by that I mean she's shorter than me and we always just set up to her as the lowest height and then I just have to make up the difference. Because of the holes being equally spaced on the front and the back and on the sides and on all cross members, it allows the rack to be modular. So essentially you can build off however you want in any direction versus a lot of 5/8-inch hardware racks where companies will save money, for example, by not cutting as many holes on the sides. You can bolt racks together, build off the side. Honestly, the only limitation is your space, well, and your wallet. It's got laser cut numbers on all the uprights from 1 to 30 on the front and the back, and also along all the cross members. It makes for a beautiful but much more expensive rack to manufacture versus labeling them every 5 holes or whatever else. Technically, I could always use something like the Plate Snacks rack barbell magnets to mark different heights, but I've always enjoyed my little paintings, which I gotta admit I'm going to miss, but they indicated Winnie's bench and squat. Now, I've been known to pick on Rep for their site, but they did just redesign it, obviously so that I wouldn't. But boy, were they wrong. This rack is rated at 1,500 pounds or 1,000 pounds. I don't know, but I won't be testing that out in my training, but they should probably sort that out on the new site. And yeah, they're probably watching. Now this rack has a 47-inch outside width, which gives you another 2 inches of wiggle room for racking and unracking your bar. That is versus a 49-inch outside width like a Rogue 3x3 rack. Now normally I'd say another 2 inches is a good thing, but in this situation, it's debatable because that means the inside of your rack is going to be 41 inches, and it means with specialty bars, it's going to be a little bit more of a tight fit. So maybe a bit of a personal preference there. It's got 1-inch hardware, which is a step up from 5/8, but I'm not really sure that that step up is necessary. It's about as overdone as this 3x3 tubing is, and for whatever reason, which it's definitely not for sales, you know, because we basically have 2 redundant models, it's not going away and is as American as it gets. But when holding these things, I kind of feel like that guy who puts huge tires on his truck because he's overcompensating. And speaking of overcompensating, you're gonna need a big tool to work on this bad boy. This is a highly customizable rack with 2 height options at 80 or 93 inches. The depth of the main cage can be set to 30 or 41 inches. You can get it in a 4-post, a 6-post, add weight horns on if you want. There's 8 different finish options, maybe 9 if they bring back stainless, which can be mixed and matched between uprights and cross members. There's lots of options as you build it up. Different pull-up bar configurations, different J-cups you can pick from, and so on. It's also nice that with that free shipping, you can add things on later or purchase things later and not feel like you're getting gouged on it. I've got the red uprights and matte black cross members here, which I will note I did matte black because that's what all their attachments are finished in. My AB250 is clear coat, and had I seen that first, honestly, I would have worked it in. It looks amazing. And Rep hopefully keeps updating their site too, because they used to have more pics of the finishes, but the new site is still being built up, it seems. This one is 93 inches tall with 41 inches for the main depth and another 19 inches added on for that weight storage, but you know I needed that big back end. Overall, this setup saves me a lot of space versus my old Rogue R6. When it comes to build quality and attention to detail, it's a very well done rack. The cuts are done by laser. They've used robotic welding and painting with laser cut logos. Not that I'm against some of those awesome stickers that companies often use. The welds on the rack are really well done, and even on the accessories, they're really nice, though every once in a while you'll find one where it's just not the same quality as the rack, and the globe pull-up bar is probably the best example of that. Functionally, those welds are good, but they're just not the same high standard as the rack. I'm not a huge fan of the stainless steel logo plate. I just feel like it's a little bit too big, but I do know that they're working on a smaller one that doesn't sacrifice the stability that that big plate provides. And either way, that's just my personal preference. A lot of people actually like it. Other than that, the logos and touches are subtle and very well done. As an example of something you don't normally see, the weight horns are covered in urethane, which is a big improvement over just powder coating them like you normally see on a Rogue rack. Your plates will just eat away at that coating, so the urethane is a nice touch. When I did an earlier review, some neckbeard, now can I actually say that now? I don't know, we've canceled everything else in 2022, so maybe not, but they went off aggressively about not buying from Kami China. So I've actually since banned them from the channel because honestly, they had some of the creepiest, most awkward, and angriest comments I've ever seen. Well, it is an imported rack, and I'm pretty pro-American manufacturing, but Rep does have almost 100 employees here in America, and they're based in Colorado. Colorado, guys. They're based in Colorado, which you wouldn't miss if you ordered from them because it's on every single box. Speaking of boxes, after moving this into my garage and then into my basement for the reno, then back into the garage, the "is this heavy? Good" thing on the box has gotten less and less cute. After moving it so many times, and by the third time I moved it, I was not particularly gentle, so the fact that it arrived unscathed is really a small miracle. And actually, when it did arrive, it broke the pallet when they were unloading it. And the guy who dropped it off said that's the second pallet because it crushed the first one and they had to build this one. And after all that, the only nick I saw was on the globe pull-up bar. This is Rep's answer to the Rogue Monster line and Sorinex's various offerings, but probably most logically the XL series. I picked up this rack for two main reasons over Rogues. The cost savings without sacrificing too much quality, and since there's so many people who come and go through here, I wanted the narrower 47-inch outside dimensions to keep it from getting banged up as much. Regarding price, this rack, if you built it from Rogue, so it would have to be a Rogue Monster, and you can't build them identical, but as close as you can get, it would cost me about $1,500 more to get this from Rogue, with this one costing about $3K as it is, and that's not with everything here yet. Which puts Rogue close to $4,500, and that's all before taxes. I will say that the racks themselves aren't always that far off in price and really that much off in quality, but where that difference really comes in is the price of those accessories. Take Rep's standard J-cups, for example, which have UHMW along all of the inside of the cup, versus the standard Monster J-cups, which don't. At $139 before shipping and handling, and no UHMW on the inside of that front lip. So now we have to go to sandwich J-cups, at which point we're essentially doubling the price difference. Take a look at what that lack of protection can do. Here's a shot of my Infinity J-cups that my bars have dug into. Not convinced? Take a look at the price difference in their drop safeties. While we're on the topic of attachments, Rep has an exciting future, and they're clearly pulling out all the stops with those reveals. Now, they're not quite on Rogue's level yet, but what they've teased and shown off looks amazing, and whereas I'd have said their attachments were a weakness in the past, I'm not so sure that's the case in the future. There's a couple that maybe need a little bit of polish, but really some of that's just because this has set such a high bar in polish and quality that anything that doesn't meet that stands out a little bit. And if you're in love with Rogue's attachments, a lot of their stuff will actually fit on this rack. And with the explosion of home gyms, there's a lot of companies that are specifically designing their attachments to fit on both sets. Surplus Strength, Mutant Metals, and many other small American shops are doing really cool things, and they've engineered theirs for both. Now, Rep's rack is listed as a 3" by 3" rack, but since it's a metric rack, it's actually a tiny bit smaller, and this is important because the same is true with that 2" hole spacing. That spacing is not identical between manufacturers, so as a generalization, anything that requires 1 hole, it'll fit just fine, but when you try to put it in 2 holes, well, it doesn't always fit. And that's the same with anything that spans the width of the rack, with Rogue being 49 inches and Rep being 47 inches, that's not going to work either, and anything that Rogue has that requires a keyhole won't work here. Now, Rogue does have more attachments, like an insane amount, and theirs in general can be a little bit better overall in quality. Though some of these Rep accessories, like the drop safeties for example, with the laser cut holes and numbers and the UHMW on top, and actually the UHMW on all contact points that would touch the rack, which by the way is standard with all Rep's attachments on the PR-5000, well, these things are really nice. But I do have to say with safeties, and it does pain me to say this, that pin and pipe safeties are an option, but you guys are better than that. Now, Rogue does have more finish options, more height options, a couple more laser cut numbers, and Rogue's racks are made in the US with keyholes cut into the sides of the uprights and along the bottom of the cross members, but honestly, both racks are of exceptional quality. So you can't really choose wrong there, it just comes down to personal preference. If you're more interested in a 3x3 rack with 5/8" hardware, I'd check out our PR-4000 review. But with a 5/8" rack, you'd save money on the rack and the accessories. Attachments for racks for 1" hardware are more expensive than attachments for a 5/8" hardware rack. And some of that's because those are typically a 1" hardware, the top of the line level that a company will offer, but companies tend to innovate and push that 1" level a little bit faster and a little bit more often than that 5/8" level. I'm sure that has nothing to do with profit margin. Listen, I can't feel my feet, the snow is still here, and it's still below 40 degrees in here. So like, comment, and subscribe to boost us on that algorithm. I'll see you next week if I'm still around.